Hey, everybody, and welcome to this edition of the Politically Incorrect Podcast. I'm Jim Williams, your host, and this time around, we have a very special guest. He is Avneet Singh, who happens to be the founder and editor of The Voice of Mankind, and he developed this think tank, and it is one of the most interesting and compelling think tanks that I've seen. It's bipartisan, and it's got a tremendous amount of depth. It covers many different areas. And I got to say, Avneet, of all the think tanks out there, this one might just be the most unique. Let's talk about it. Give us a background on how you decided to develop the Voice of Mankind.
Absolutely. So Voice of Mankind is a think tank. It's a group of people that are working to help the public make sense of this changing world. So as you know, throughout the world, there's a lot of unrest, uncertainty. People do not really understand what's going on and what can they do about it. So it's basically Voice of Mankind is putting ideas in people's heads. It's trying to drive the conversation. It's trying to drive the narrative and say, hey, why don't you think about this? And here is some food for thought. Here is a direction that we could discuss this. It doesn't necessarily give you the correct or the right answer or even a good answer. It just says, let us talk about what are your plans for your retirement. What are you worried about the culture your children will inherit it? So I don't give them answers. It's like, hey, here, I'm worried about the culture my children are going to inherit, and I want to talk to you about it, and this is what I feel. What do you think? So that's really the driver of the aim, the mission of Voice of Mankind, and it's a not-for-profit organization.
Well, now, the thing that I was impressed with by looking at the website is the concept by which, as you just said, you're not telling anybody what to do or suggesting what anybody do, but you're in essence sparking, if you will, a global conversation as to what are some of the right things to do. And it's always good to get a dialogue, especially in times like these when there's so many uncertain issues that people either don't know anything about, don't choose to want to know anything about, or are ill-advised about.
Absolutely. A good topic is what I call, people say this very often, I don't get it. People say that they don't feel a connection with certain important topic that everyone should know about. It's a common response. Ask people to think deeply about a complex topic, and they say it doesn't really connect with them. They don't get it. It doesn't really entertain them. And the dialogue I have is, why is that, and what is the consequences of it, and what can one do about it? So that's the dialogue, the discussion I like to drive. I can go on. I can talk more about it.
Well, I think go ahead.
Yeah, so it's we are surrounded by entertainment, infotainment, as I call it, noise, and information gets ignored if it's wrapped in entertainment. Just because it's easy for all of us to latch onto entertainment rather than information. Information that's useful to us is also at times just harder for us to process. So information, even wrapped in entertainment or surrounded by entertainment, is just lost. And sadly, what gets us today in today's information is not what's useful to us, not what we should be talking about, but things that stand out from the noise because of its entertainment and shock value. So that's the thing I like to point out. Do we have time in our lives to talk about what affects us all? If you ask any person on the street, people are concerned. They're concerned about the culture. They're going to leave their children. They're worried about financial freedom. They're worried about social security, a clean environment. However, most of us spend our daily lives filled with things that don't really get us what we want. I think there's a funny Prudential insurance article. It says, do you spend more time on social media than on selecting your retirement benefits? And that's really a reflection on what we are doing as society and as community.
Yeah, I think that, to your point, um, part of the problem is that right now, and I've been in the um, journalism business for coming up on almost 40 years here. And I've never quite, and I'd like to get your opinion on this, I've never quite seen so many avenues for misinformation. So people come in with this preconceived idea or notion because they've been reading or getting their information from one silo, where it's an echo chamber that's all just what they want to hear, what they want to, or what their specific need is. And they've been fed, in essence, this information, and they've walled themselves off from everything else. And so when you do begin the process of trying to explain something, they automatically distrust you.
Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting thing is that this behavior is not hardwired in us. What we are hardwired for is a sense of community. That's what we have to do good for each other, to care for each other. And this was documented and presented on even on various social media by the great Professor Noam Chomsky, who said it's taken trillions of dollars to get us to not care for each other, not to be concerned about our future, to have us distracted, disinformed, and misinformed. But that behavior isn't hardwired to us. As we hardwired to be part of a community, to socialize, to take care of each other. A good example is, if you go out with a group of children, what really gets them excited is nature, being out in nature, out in the fields, in the forest, being with animals, horses, dogs, pets. That's what gets them more excited. Give them a choice between playing with a pony or a horse or animals, or going to a farm and staying at work and playing with their iPad. And they would almost always choose going out in the fields, in the forest. But somehow they grow up not being exposed to all the good things in life, about being with friends, going out and playing with friends, going out and enjoying nature. That's because that's denied to them. They just get used to that the self-centered lifestyle, and greed. So it's not, even as individuals, we are hardwired to take care of each other, to make right decisions, but that's just denied to us, partly just because of the lifestyle, and partly parents need to take that blame as well. But yeah, it's not, we're hardwired to be good people, as in the traditional sense of the word.
It's interesting, to your point on people being wired to do things. When I was growing up, after I did my homework, you couldn't keep me in the house. I wanted to go out. I wanted to play, sports or whatever with my brothers or friends. And now there's an initiative here in the United States by the by Major League Baseball called Play 60, and that means they're literally telling kids or asking children to get outside and play for an hour. And you're thinking, an hour, my mother would have had a hard time keeping me from not playing over an hour. So to your point, yes, because of things like, computers and tablets and phones and all of these screens in front of us, that we don't do what we naturally would do, and that is go out and just commune with nature, or have some fun playing with your friends, or just exploring in general.
Absolutely. And this is something that, there are aspects of our life that everyone should understand. And even if you don't get it, even if you don't get um, even if you don't get it, everyone has to try and understand it, because and engage in this conversation, because these are the big ideas that shape our life. They shape the community we live in. They shape the society we grow up in. And these big ideas are the ones every one of us should understand, engage, connect with, even if they don't initially get what it is about. um, and a good test of this is just to read classic literary works from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. or
Mm-hmm.
Nelson Mandela, Gandhi. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Just pick up classic works and classic big ideas, and even if they're wrong, just I think people should get into that habit of reading those, sharing those ideas with their children, because it's just the process of analyzing these big ideas, thinking about it, that just make us better individuals and
Mm-hmm.
and help us avoid being disconnected in this connected world we live in.
I'm going to take a couple of your topics and kind of merge them. And that's the return of Emperor Nero and who owns your country. We are in the midst here, obviously, of a presidential cycle in 2020. And we have two parties that are absolutely diametrically, opposed on a number of subjects. And one of the things that you bring up in the Who Owns Your Country or Return of Nero, I'm sorry, is that sometimes we as the electorate forget that the politicians are simply caretakers, as you have it. Um, we expect them to do the right thing, and yet we're now holding them to standards that the bar is so incredibly low you could almost walk over it. You don't even have to jump to get over it. You know, it's scary to me that we are, as we move into election 2020, that we are arguing over the minimum amount of things that should be taken care of by the people that we elect and send to office to represent us, because they're not really doing that. They're not really doing what they're being told to do or asked to do or elected to do. They're doing things that become more partisan and political than they do uh, and I'm not saying all civil servants are like that. They're not, but some of them are. And we seem to be in one of those stuck zones where we're between Nero and who owns your country, as you so aptly put in the in some of your wonderful points that you gave us here today.
Yes. So just to let your readers know, in case they don't know, Roman Emperor Nero was famous in history as the emperor who played music while ancient Rome burned.
Right.
So I think it's, most of our leaders, our politicians, they are very similar to Roman Emperor Nero. I mean, take the examples of the large-scale fires in Australia this month,
Mm-hmm.
burning of the Amazon rainforest, which was the worst fires ever in Amazon last
Mm-hmm.
year. There's been fires in California in the
Right, northern
news.
and southern
Uh,
California.
Right, right. So it's and while this was going on, there was this absence of leadership. I think worse than the crisis was the environmental crisis is just the leadership crisis. The Prime Minister of Australia was on holiday in the early stages of the forest fires. President of Brazil, he proudly boasted that, I'm Captain Chainsaw. I am Nero, setting the Amazon aflame, as if, he's just unmoved by the worst fires in Amazon in history. I mean, the Prime Minister of Canada was away for holiday, and he came back, and all the discussion was about his beard and what did he do. It's that there's, worse than the environmental crisis almost seems to be the leadership crisis. Um, We used to laugh at the emperors of day old. We used to ridicule them for being out of touch, ineffective, self-centered. But are the democratic elected leaders and politicians today, are they any different?
No.
No, and I agree. It's, the purpose of democracy and taxpayer-funded institutions was to make them representative and responsive to the needs of the people. Yet that's not the case. Politicians and leaders are accountable to lobbyists, not the people. We can't expect them to have our interests at their heart. I mean, these were global crises, but what if there is a global pandemic that affects all of us, like the coronavirus getting out of hand? Can we expect our global leaders to make difficult decisions that affect the lives of millions or billions of people? What would we do if these pandemics grow out of hand and we have to make difficult decisions? I mean, where's the leadership crisis? So that's the that's the dialogue I would like your viewers and my viewers to have.
Well, I think it's never more important than it is now. I mean, as you talked about the climate situation, we have climate deniers, which is ridiculous because you need only have a pair of eyes to find out that that it's changing around us. And as we said before, we have leaders who are more Nero-esque than they are Gandhi. There's a joke running around here in Washington that basically says, there's a reason that Profiles in Courage is only a 1-volume book. There isn't a lot of profiles in courage in politics these days. And that's tragic. And we need to have more dialogue. And I think that's what you and your wonderful think tank has spurred on, is that, take some time, think about this, get a dialogue going, and you need to talk to people, because that's the only way that you're going to better understand each other. And to have a global conversation, that's a wonderful concept.
Yeah. Yes, and it's we have crises going on. We have the environmental crisis. We have other crises as well. But the question I put to people is that what new model or big idea do we have on the horizon to solve our global problems? Are we agree, and most people agree, democratically elected politicians and leaders are not fit for purpose. There are other models of governance and other big ideas which are more responsive to people's needs. However, such models and big ideas are unlikely to be widely accepted, and they'll never be given a fair trial. It's like the old English British civil service adage is that if you want to change the political system, you have to get the involvement or buy-in of the people, from the people who are in power, who have been elected, and they would never change a system that put them in that made them so successful. So it's just difficult to do it if we just rely on the politician. And I think that's a good segue to the next topic I wanted to talk to you about, is that we just can't leave it to our politicians, elected institutions, elected bodies and institutions. It's really our country. We own this country. It's the people who own the country. It's you own your country on almost everything, and it's the land, rivers, forest, roads, mines, army, the banks, institution. They all belong to the people. They don't belong to the government, even though the government manages it. They don't belong to the politicians. They are maintained by our taxes. They are maintained and managed by the government, and it's there for our benefit, but it belongs to you. So really, this dialogue, this conversation about what new models are going to solve our problem and who owns our country is really, this is a dialogue that people should be having more of.
It's funny. One of my favorite sayings from Winston Churchill is that you can always count on the United States to do the right thing after they've exhausted every other possible option. And
That's good. That's good.
We as a country cannot exhaust every possible option before we start doing the right thing. And I think that what you guys are doing with your think tank is come around at a very important time. And I thoroughly encourage everyone listening to check things out. Tell us about your website and how we can follow you on social media.
Absolutely. The website is voiceofmankind.org. There's about 75 articles on different topics, and the intention is to get people talking about these big ideas that affect our life, from everything from the food we eat, nature, who owns your country, politics, capitalism versus socialism. Should you pursue money, or should you just be more altruistic? So there's lots of topics that are discussed, and you can go in there. And of course, there's link to social media and Twitter account. So encourage your readers to subscribe to that. But yeah, it's just a website, voiceofmankind.org, and all articles are free for everyone. It's an ad-free experience because we are a non-profit. We want to give you the best possible experience to ingest these articles, talk about it, reflect upon it. And the other good thing is that it's not an exhaustive discussion. Most of the articles are 1 to 1.5 pages long, so it's a quick read. It puts a seed in your mind. It's just a topic that you should think about, reflect upon, maybe on your commute to work or whenever you have time. Just think about it and come back for more.
Well, and we'll have all that information in the show box below so that everybody will have a chance to find out the information. I highly recommend. I spent quite a bit of time on your website and found the articles to be very interesting and thought-provoking and entertaining in a good way. So by all means, all that information is going to be in the show box below. Thanks for joining us, and don't be a stranger. We'll have you back down the line here as as things begin to get clearer as we move into the summer and the fall. We'll have you back, and we'll chat a little bit more about some other topics that you guys are involved in.
Thank you for having me, Jim, and I will look forward to coming back.
Special thanks to our guest, Avneet Singh, the founder and editor of Voice of Mankind. All the information on Voice of Mankind, as we said before, a bipartisan think tank, is in the show box below. We'll be back with some more of the Politically Incorrect podcast right after this from BMW i3, the ultimate electric driving machine.
Life is about making decisions. At BMW i, we decided it was time to reinvent the car from the ground up, making sure we were open for truly innovative ideas. We decided that the car we wanted must be electric, and it should be made of extremely light and super strong carbon fiber. And finally, we decided to make it more intelligent and added our promise of incomparable driving pleasure. We made all these decisions to offer you a choice. The all-electric BMW i3.
Welcome back, everybody. Now, if you're not already one of the over 30,000 people who've taken the time to, subscribe to the podcast, first of all, shame on you. Second of all, it's free. We make it very simple. We are part of the Apple Podcast family, so check us out at Apple Podcast. Same thing over at Google, at the old Google Play Store, because we are part of the Google Podcast family. Check us out at Streaker, Stitcher, Spotify, as well as iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and, of course, YouTube, just to name a few. Now, if you can't seem to find us, not a problem. Just get out the old Google machine, type in the Politically Incorrect Podcast with Jim Williams, hit the favorite button or the subscribe button, and every week you'll get a brand new edition of the podcast sent directly to your phone, your tablet, or to both, okay? All right. So, look, this is going to be a very busy week. We have the New Hampshire primary, which we are going to break down the results after which and really do a deep dive into, a lot of people are writing candidates off. It's only two contests in, folks. It's a little too early to write people off just yet. So let's take a deep breath. Let's exhale, and we're going to walk you through, game it out for all those and left in the race and figure out what they have to do as we move forward to Nevada and, of course, to South Carolina before the Super Tuesday hits in the first Tuesday in March. Okay, so plenty of stuff to talk about. Check us out. We will be with you on Friday. Okay, so Friday, as per usual, you will get the podcast, and this one will be delving into winners, losers of the New Hampshire primary and how things are shaking out. We'll be talking to folks in both Nevada, South Carolina. We'll be hitting up Barry Edwards, of course, and LA Bachelor and the whole gang as we pull in to find out just what is going on. And we'll take that 40,000-foot look at the race. Again, folks, only two contests. I was primary and I was caucus and New Hampshire's primary. So don't hit the panic button yet. We got plenty of time to go as we see how things work out in the race for the White House 2020. So until that time, I'm Jim Williams. For the rest of the team here at the Politically Incorrect Podcast, we will talk to you later this week. Look for us on Friday, okay? Until that time, have a safe and wonderful week.